Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be getting the cylinder ready to go on the motor. And in the last video, if you didn't catch that, I powder coated the head. So you should probably go check that out. It was a cool video. But let's get right on to the cylinder. Alright guys, it is time to get this cylinder sent off for repair. I don't know if I told you guys or showed you, but deep inside of the exhaust port here, there's a crack. But it does need to be repaired. It is a little beat up in here too. It does need to be repaired. It's pretty scratched up in places. There's some hone right there still left. Some nice scratches right here. It's a little dusty. You can see those scratches there. So it's going to be sent off to Power Seal USA for welding that crack in the exhaust bridge. And we're going to have it replated as well. So what we're going to need to do to get it ready to be sent off is first we're going to take out all these studs and I'm going to take out these dowel pins. Most of the power valve is already out, but we'll check to make sure it's all out anyway, and basically get it down to the bare cylinder. So let's get started. So to get these studs out, I will be using the double nut technique, and I'm gonna try it with the impact here at first. Wrong direction. Alright, there's the first one. Technique's pretty easy. You got a strong enough impact with enough of a hit, it'll pull these studs right out. Last one was stuck in a little bit harder than the rest, but nothing that I can't get to. Get this seal out. Pretty crusty. Let's get these last two dowel pins out. These dowel pins can get pretty stuck in here, so I'm gonna make sure I get it out right. So the method that I like to use for these is you find a drill bit or bolt. Usually you have more selection with drill bits. One that fits pretty much perfectly in there. And then you got to get your vice grips tightened up enough to where it clamps down to that drill bit like that. Might bend it a little bit, but alright guys, sorry I had to stop the recording there, but I had to put the cylinder on the ground and step on it to get this dowel pin out. But gets it out. Just basically once you get it going, keep moving it until it comes out. Eventually it will, but it's better to get these out with work, and you can put some new fresh clean ones in the next time you're doing this. It'll go easier because you'll keep up on it, maintain it, and it'll be nice and easy to do next time you do it. So I'm going to do this other one off camera. Here's the final result. See if my camera will focus on it. You can kind of see the bite marks of the vice grips in it, but it doesn't spin and it gets it out. So I'll do this other one real quick and I'll get back to you. Alright guys, I got the cylinder back from Power Seal USA and I'm absolutely stunned with the job they did. As you can see in here, the hone and plate job is beautiful. So yeah, there's a little bit of pitting from when it was used on the bike, but not a bad job. It has been vapor blasted as far as I can tell. This is just because for the nickel seal plating process, they have to coat the cylinder everywhere that they don't want the plate in something to prevent it from being plated, and so that's probably the way they're removing that coating. So, but as you can see in here, I don't know, I'll try and zoom in to it with the camera. but the cross hatching is good. So first, what I'm going to do is sand down this head gasket ceiling surface area. Over here, got a piece of glass and some sandpaper. Piece of glass is just so it's a nice and flat surface. And do some sanding here with it. Try and keep it flat. And just try and keep your motion over it nice and smooth and even. It's the most important part. So you can see I'm kind of going in circles here. That's pretty good. I'm gonna blow it out with some compressed air. All right, now another thing that Power Seal does is if you send the piston with the cylinder, they'll get the piston tuned to the cylinder or the cylinder tuned to the piston, so the gaps are all correct. I will check that as I put it on, but now we need to install that power valve. So I got the power valve here. I did some work. As you can see, here is the rod that goes through the middle. Polished it up, and I'm working on a finishing process. It could be classified as isotropic finishing, but I'm not going to put it as that. But it just leaves a super smooth and fine finish on the surface without removing much material. Looks pretty good. Cleaned it off with solvent too. And here are our power valve flaps. I removed most of the casting marks on this surface right here. And as you can see, the flap surface here is extremely smooth and shiny. Now I didn't do this surface right here because it's not necessarily important. It's not going to be getting any of the gases. So let's get these in. I believe I got one seal to install over here on this side. So let me find that. I believe this here is our seal. Looks about perfect fit. So I'm not going to put it on the shaft yet. But what I am going to do is I'm going to oil it up. Got Caster 927 here. This is what I'm going to be using as the premix in the bike, and I'm going to be using this to oil up our surfaces here and valves because it's going to be in there, and I want to just keep it that way. It's good oil. It's not too thick, so I'm going to oil up the seal. All right, got that seal in, as you can see right there. So for installing the power valve here, got the flaps. Now one thing I'm going to do before I put them in, as they are steel, as I am aware, maybe cast iron, I'm not quite sure, but they are steel, which will rust. So I'm gonna oil them up so I don't have a rusty power valve. So let's see, this side, it's gonna go in with this polished side down, something like this. Let me oil it up first, as all these nice and smooth, fresh surfaces have the possibility of rusting, and I don't want that. All right, so I'm gonna slide the power valve in through the exhaust port here. I'll wiggle it around a little bit, it'll find its spot. All right, I've got that first power valve in. A little bit of wiggling with it. I don't know if you guys can see it down in there. Probably not. But I ended up having to turn it sideways. I might be able to show an example with this other one, kind of going like that to get it in there, push it past the exhaust port, and then I was able to turn it into position. Let me give it a little bit more oil here. Let me oil up the shaft. This is the area right here that's gonna be in with the flaps, and then here is gonna be sealed, so it doesn't need quite as much, but it's going through the seal. And if we look at it, the two cables for the servo are gonna go here and here, and then the cable is gonna go up and out. So it needs to go like this, as I have it upside down right now. Slide it on in. Get it past that seal. Wiggle it a little bit until it engages. Alright, that's as far as I can go. Need to put the other one in before I go any farther. So I'm gonna do the same for this one. I'm gonna give it a good oil. And I'm gonna slide it in here. See if I can show you a little better. So I'm gonna go in sideways like this. Hopefully I can zoom in a little bit. Alright guys, I ended up getting this other power valve in. I ended up having to go through the bore instead of the port, but that's okay, we got it in. Now I just got to get this shaft through. Alright guys, got the power valve in and functioning as it should. We did have to remove a little bit of plasti dip, as you can see right here. They use that to prevent the Nicosil from getting on the whole cylinder, and there's a little bit left in the slot for the left valve when it's sitting the way it normally would. So this side, but we got it turning smooth now. It was binding up with that, but now it turns smooth. So now we'll be on to getting the motor ready to accept the cylinder, and then we can drop the cylinder on. Alright guys, quick intermission here. You can see the graphic on your screen. I just wanted to say that that bottom number is looking a little bit low. This is pretty impressive. I haven't seen it this low ever. So if you guys want to change that, make that a little higher for me, all you have to do is go below the video, and if there's a red button, make sure to turn it gray. It's that easy. Thanks for subscribing if you do. Let's get back into the video. Now I'm gonna finish the bottom end. I'm gonna put the water pump back together and get all that ready. And then next video, we're gonna put the cylinder and piston and everything, button up this motor. Let's get back to it. Alright guys, our next step here is gonna be rebuilding the water pump. So to start with that, simply push out our shaft here. Comes right on out. We got a couple seals here. Alright, today we're going to be heating up the bearings with the death torch here. It's not super effective in getting it going, but it's effective in being loud. Probably doesn't need to be super hot. Let's see if that'll pop it out. Shouldn't need that much heat. Easy. So there's that other seal. Looks like this one is coming a little bit different of an angle in the bearing, a little bit warm. Looks something like this. And leave that there for reference. I'm gonna polish up this case real quick. I'm gonna use the same grinding wheel, and I'll clean up a little bit. Alright guys, let's get this water pump in real quick, or at least the bearings and seals right now, and put the rest in. So we got two seals here. We got one that's a little bit bigger, one that's smaller. Should be able to see. They look a little bit different from this side too. So you're gonna get the smaller one, and that guy is gonna go in from the inside here. I got a socket here that fits. I'm gonna tap it down into position. Alright, it's in all the way. Now I'm gonna take our bearing here. I'm gonna put it in just like I put in the other bearings. It is doesn't matter which way you go, but I'm gonna go lettering out and pound it on in. It's a small bearing, so it should go pretty easy. Alright guys, I'm all set up here over at the press. So what you're going to want to do when you're pressing bearings is you're going to want to have good surface to be pressing so that you're pressing straight. You want to make sure you're centered pretty well on this bearing, and then I like to put a block of wood under the case just to prevent it from any damage at all from like harder metals like steel, like digging into it. Just want to keep things perfect here. So pressing super easy. It's a small little bearing. Looks like it's not going in perfectly straight. Block of wood probably isn't the best. Go ahead and straighten things out a little bit. Just want to make sure it goes down nice and easy. Shouldn't be any weirdness along the way. It's almost in there. This press is super loud. Alright, that's all the way in. Alright guys, I just checked to make sure in my previous video. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this bearing looks like it's not fully in, but that is indeed all the way in. So we can move into installing this other steel on this side. So one thing to note is that these two seals are opposing. Their open faces right here are both out, if you think about it the way they're installed. This one, the open face is down. This one, the open face is up. Just something to watch out for. I'm gonna grease this area up right here a little bit. Make sure the seal has a nice seal, because we don't really want a bunch of oil in our coolant or a bunch of coolant in our oil. And it should slide right on in. Need a little bit of tapping. Alright, that looks like it's in all the way. Looks flush. Nice fit. Might need to wiggle it a little bit. And it should spin super smooth. And if you put assembly lube in the bearing, like I did, it'll definitely slow it down. Assembly lube is super thick. So now, gotta get a washer for that. Alright, so we got a washer here on this side. Should thread on easy. Slide in pretty easy right here. It's not one of the challenging ones. Not really doing much. There's not even really oil this high on the engine. Alright, now I'm gonna grease up this seal. Still, you don't really want oil coming out right here while you're riding, getting all over your pants. Alright guys, we're about ready to get these two parts back together. Just got a couple more things to do. Gotta put in a couple dowel pins, one here, gotta slide that gasket on, and then we're ready to go back together. So I'm gonna grease up these dowel pins for sure. So they should just slide in super easy, all greased. But to anyone who's working on motorcycles like me, I highly recommend getting some of this Maxima grease here. It's like $9 I think, and this tub here will last you a lifetime. It's good quality too. So let's get this guy on, this gasket. I'm gonna put it onto the engine side first. Alright, I think we got the case bolts for this case in the Bolt MX kit. So I'm gonna check that out. Now let's get this sliding on. I'm gonna put a little bit more assembly lube on this main gear here. I'm gonna put some right where that washer on the water pump goes. And before I forget, I'm gonna put that washer in. So that guy's gonna go right here. And I'm gonna put a little bit more just kind of on everything in this motor. I'm gonna take out this little cover I got. so I can move things around. And then I'm gonna put oil in here pretty soon, but I just want to give everything a good spin. Make sure everything's nice and free. All right, feels good. Let's see if we can slide this on. So there's a couple things to line here. Got the kickstart shaft, obviously. I'm gonna slide that past. Nice and easy. Let's visually inspect everything as it's going in. Might need to spin the water pump here. Yep, that's aligned, I believe. Should go in super smooth because we greased up those dowel pins. Looks like this side's lining. How are we looking over here? This side's even farther in. Wiggle it a little bit further. And the rest of this, a bunch of this needs to go back together, like the water pump and the clutch case, and then we can really torque all this down. But right now we can't get enough of these bolts in to really torque them down.